My name is Catherine Harris. I go by Katie, and I am joined today by my colleague, Ms. Tanya Weigold, and we are your Palmetto Fellows team at the Commission on Higher Education. So I just want to start and thank everybody for taking the time to join us today. We know your time is very limited and very valuable, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We are recording this session. You will receive the recording and the slides after this presentation. We will have a Q&A at the end. So by all means, please feel free to throw your questions in the chat or just make a note and you can ask them at the end. But I want to make sure we get through everything before we start delving off into questions, just to make sure we get the majority of the information covered for those that were able to attend. All right, so we are here today to talk about the Palmetto Fellows, and we currently have two application periods. We have the early award and the late award. The early award opens for the graduating class May 1st of their junior year. So for the class of 24, it opened May 1st of 2023, their junior year, and it will close April 15th of their senior year. And then a month later, we will open the late award for the class of 24. So it will be open May 15th. We usually close it on June 30th of every year, but if the 30th falls on a holiday, there's no holiday there. If it falls on a weekend, we will bump it back to the preceding Friday. Just a couple notes. These are two different application periods. They have the requirements for them vary slightly. And so they have different paperwork that is required. So you can't apply for a student for the late award using early award documentation and vice versa. A student cannot become a Palmetto Fellow after they graduate high school. Their application has to be submitted by June 30th of their senior year. And for your students that are being submitted during the late award period, if they are still test pending and they're testing at that June test date, and we'll go over this a little bit more when we get to the processing slide, their notification is going to be extremely late because College Board and ACT, it takes them about a month to get score reports released to us. And so when they test in early June, for some reason, the summer seems to take a little bit longer. So we don't get them until mid to late July. And usually the student's tuition bill for the fall term is due sometime in July. So they may need to make alternative arrangements, and then that Palmetto Fellows will get applied to them, but their initial due date may be prior to that. So let's look at our requirements. So we have two different sets of requirement. Our standard requirement, and this is different than the life. This is not best two of three. They have to meet all of these. So they need to rank in the top 6% at the end of 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, one of those years. As soon as they meet that rank requirement, that is locked in as long as you have a final transcript that matches the final rank report. They need a 1200 SAT or a 25 ACT. All test scores for state scholarships can be super scored. We have our little super score Superman down there. So you can super score them all. And they need a 3.5 cumulative SCU GPA. So this GPA is going to be a final GPA on either the end of 11th grade for the early award application or the end of 12th grade GPA for the late award application. So please keep that in mind. It does vary based on the application you're submitting. Then we also have our alternative criteria. This is for our students who are meeting without regard to rank. They may test high enough to not need rank, or they may attend an institution that doesn't rank. So they need a 1400 SAT or a 31 ACT, and then they need a 4.0 cumulative SCU GPA. And that is going to vary just like the other one. It's either going to be the end of 11th grade for the early award or end of 12th grade for the late award. So Palmetto Fellow scholarships are year round. The eligible student would need to be part of either the early application or the late. They have to have their application submitted during the senior year. We will review applications continuously from the point in time that we receive them. At that point in time, we will upload the decision into our data system. And then once that's done, we immediately send the student a notification email and it is going to the student's email address. So that would be the email that is on the certification authorization form, the student email that is entered during the electronic submission. Estimated processing time from the date that CHE receives the paper application is 1 month. And so Tanya and I do pretty good. We usually run less than a month until we get to April, and then all bets are off for those last 2 weeks of April. So if you know you are mailing your applications on October 30th, that means your students will have received their email from us by November 30th. So just keep that in mind. If you have any mid-year graduates, and so we're going to give you a slide later that defines these, but a mid-year graduate would be somebody who is graduating at the end of the fall term, which is usually December or January. Those students have to have their application submitted to CHE for the Palmetto Fellows prior to them completing their high school graduation. So we said before, they can't become a Palmetto Fellow after they graduate high school. They cannot graduate in December, January, and then you submit their application in April. And that walking during commencement does not count as their graduation. We're going by their graduation date on their final 12th grade transcript. Okay, so hopefully this looks familiar to you guys. This is the application processing timeline. We sent this out with the early award notification. It is also on our website under our new high school counselor webpage we created. And if we have time at the end, we can pull up the website and show you that. So I did put a red dot on here, just it's like the little thing at the mall, you are here. So we opened May 1st to 23. We're doing early awards, and then you'll see the next one is September. So we got our first paper applications for the early award in August. And so the first set of email notifications started in September. So those have started. So they are ongoing now. The last testing date for the early award is March of 24. So for ACT, it's March 8th of 24. SAT, it's March 9th. We will close the early award on April 15th. Please keep in mind that is a received at CHE date, not a mail by date. I know, it's a received by date. We will spend the next month very hurriedly processing all the applications we got in April. And then in May, we will open the late award. And so with the May applications, those require a final 12th grade GPA, a final 12th grade transcript. So it will open May 15th. And then once you have your transcripts calculated, you can get those submitted. The last testing date is the June 24 testing. So for SAT, it's June 1st. ACT, it's June 8th. Those students still testing in June need to send their scores directly to CHE. We have registration codes, just like the colleges and universities. They are on this timeline. So they just need to put that on there when they register for the June test date. And this year, June 30th falls on the weekend. So we will close the late award on Friday, June 28th, 2024 at 5 p.m. Once again, that is a received by deadline, not a mail by deadline. Okay, so as you are aware, this is a counselor-driven process, and we are trying to do everything we can to relieve some of that administrative burden for you. We hope within the next couple months, we will have an announcement that you will like us again sometime soon, but we will keep you posted once we have an announcement, an official announcement we can make. So the counselor fills out the online application. That is how the student gets into our database. So when and I think you guys know this, since COVID, I don't know what happened during COVID, we get a lot of phone calls from parents who they have spoke to you guys. They are calling us to check the information that they got. So when they call us, they may have already got notification from you that you have the application, you submitted it. They will, without a doubt, call us and check. So we use the electronic submission to say, hey, we don't have the paper yet, but we are expecting it because they've submitted the electronic. So that's how your student gets loaded into our database for processing. We cannot process your paper applications without that electronic submission. The student completes the certification authorization form. That is the legal document where the student is agreeing to the terms and the regulations of the scholarship program. And we're going to go over that form a little bit later. So, how do we contact you guys? We keep a point of contact list for Palmetto Fellows. So, if you have staffing changes or you're cross training and somebody on your team is new who's doing Palmetto Fellows, please reach out to us at the scholarships email. Tanya and I both check that email. We can get your point of contact for Palmetto Fellows updated. We send emails directly via that list. We will also send it to SCDE's school counselor listserv. So you will get these slides. This is the website. Down under additional resources, you can click on join the school counseling listserv, and then they send it out through that listserv as well. Okay, so the 2024 early award email notification went out on August 18th. And so it's going to come, all of our emails we try to send from the CHE scholarships email. So you may want to add that to a contact in your email. If we have your email right and you're not getting our email, you're going to have to go to your district IT to figure out why they're blocking us. And it does happen. So I would recommend, if you can, add us to your safe list or add us as a contact, the scholarships email, because we send everything in batches and we get filtered like you wouldn't even believe. So and then the same day it went out on the SCDE listserv. So that comes out via an email, and that is the guidance at listserv.edsc.gov. So those both went out on August 18th. So if you're looking for it and haven't found it, it's probably buried, and we know how that goes. All right. So the application webpage. So this is our webpage where we house all of our information for the application for the high school counselors. So I will tell you, something did happen during COVID. I think we all know it's just an underlying theme. This listserv had been hidden before, but whatever happened during COVID, they can Google this and find this. So we did add the verbiage this year that the application materials have to be submitted by the school counselor or representative, or we will not submit it, because we did get some random parent submitted applications last year, and it was a surprise to us and the school counselor. So we do have that little tidbit on there. This link to this website is in the email that we sent on August 18th. If you're new and didn't get it, like I said, shoot us an email. We'll get that to you. This webpage is step-by-step instructions. So we have it broke down into 5 steps on how to submit an application. So we're going to go through each one of these steps. So step 1 was the school checklist. Step 2 is determining all your eligible students with the eligible applicants form. Step 3 is completing the student's online submission. That's how they get in our database. Step 4 is the certification form. And then step 5 is getting it to CHE. We will shut off the database at the deadline. So please make sure you've done your application submissions before you mail us your packet. At the bottom, we have some additional resources down here. We have example application packets. If you're new, you're not sure how it's supposed to look, or shoot, you're doing this once a year. So even if you're not new, you might want to just take a look at it. The example application packet has mocked up forms full size for you to see. All of our contact info is at the bottom. That is our correct mailing address. These are all of our work cell phones. So please feel free to reach out to those directly. So step 1, like I said, is the checklist. There's a checklist based on your type of school. So this example I have pulled up is the public school checklist. And this is pretty standard. I'm sure you guys are pretty much familiar with this form, but we did make a change on it this year. So I did want to draw your attention to that, to this green box down here. Early graduates, mid-year grads must have their applications submitted to CHE prior to completing their high school graduation requirements. So I'm guessing if you're paying attention, you are catching on that this was a problem last year that we had in the state. So we don't want any students missing out on their scholarship eligibility because a deadline was not caught by the school. At the same time, we do realize that they don't give you guys a lot of notice sometimes. They will be planning to attend the whole year and they'll walk in and be like, well, you know, we're done. We're not going to do spring. So if you have an early graduation checklist, we do ask you to add state scholarships to that. And if you need any additional information about how that relates to each one, we're going to go over it further at the end, but we would be more than happy to talk you and your team through that. When you're submitting this checklist, we only need one checklist per school submission, not one checklist per student submission. So if you're submitting 25 students, I only need one checklist. I don't need 25 checklists, one per student. Step 2 is the eligible applicants form. We have to have the eligible applicants form when you submit it. If there's a problem with your applications, this tells us who we are supposed to contact because it lists the high school contact information on it. And a lot of times, some of our schools have multiple people that are submitting applications. So please make sure you're submitting an eligible applicants form. If you submit it without it, we are going to contact you and require you to submit it to us in order to process your file. So we only need, having said that, you can submit applications as many times to us during the early and late award period as you would like. So right now, if you already have 20 kids that you know have qualified, you can go ahead and submit them to us to get those 20 students' parents off your back. We will process them. Having said that, for the eligible applicants form, I need one form for that packet. So if you're submitting 20 students now, you'll send me a form with those 20 students. But when you go to send me your next packet, it's just going to be the students you're submitting at that time. Do not send me a running form that has all the previous students that you submitted. We use these to file your packets and to identify the students that are in that submission. We did get feedback from you guys last year. Not every district had full Adobe. So we did make the eligible applicants form an Excel file this year in the hopes that that would make it easier for you guys. So hopefully everybody has Excel. You'll be able to type right on the form. If you still want to print it and write in it, that's your prerogative. When you click the eligible applicants form from the application webpage, it's going to download that. So you're probably going to have to pull it out of your download file. The other thing I will tell you is I did attach it to the August email, the Excel spreadsheet. So you should already have it on that email if you got that email from us. If you hate Excel and you would prefer to have the old PDF, by all means, please send me an email and I'll send you the old PDF. We are trying to make it as easy as possible on you guys. Step 2 continued, we do have instructions on how to identify all your eligible applicants. And so you guys may already have a school process for that. If you don't, you're new, you're not sure what your school process is, I would recommend you take a look at this form to try and get an idea to formulate on how you're going to identify your students. The best part about this is it tells you how to calculate your top 6% and how to round it correctly. So that is listed on the application webpage under resources. It was also attached to the August 18th email. Okay, step 3 is the electronic submission. It's we host a digital form. And so you're just inputting the student's information. And so that just needs to be, I recommend you do it before you mail your paper apps, but it definitely needs to be submitted prior to the electronic app closing. Like I said earlier, if we get your paper app and we don't have this submission, we won't be able to process it until we get it. Step 4, this is your student information packet. It is 5 pages. The first 3 pages are for the student and or parent to retain. Pages 4 and 5 are the legal application document that has to be completed by the student and or the parent if the student is under 18 and returned to you. So we don't need pages 1 through 3. They technically really do need to keep them if they want to know what they need to know, but we do need pages 4 and 5 back. Step 4. This is page 4 and 5 of the certification authorization form. It's pretty standard. It's what we've had. We do ask them to use blue or black ink to write legibly. I mean, you know where I'm going with that. The one thing I will say is all the signatures and initials cannot be typed. We have to be able to see that the student saw this, the student initialed it. So they can do it digitally. So like this example right here of this, these are signed digitally. That's fine. They just cannot type them. And so on page 2, you can see the student typed all the other parts and then they digitally initialed, digitally signed. These are perfectly fine. The other thing I will say is that this is the 2324 form. Some of you may have already distributed forms to your students, and that's fine. But we can't take a form prior to last year. So we'll take the 22-23 form and we'll take the 23-24 form. I cannot take a form previous to 22-23 because it does not include the legal verbiage for a gap year or for a 2-year institution. So if you have a really old form that you are disseminating and you submit that, we're going to ask you to replace it. So both the 22-23 and the 23-23 forms are marked on the bottom of page 2. You'll be able to very easily see what form you're using. Step 5. So this is getting it to us. So this is our mailing address. We are in the same building. We did move floors a couple years ago. We are on the 4th floor. So you can mail it to us. And I know for years we have told you it has to be certified. It doesn't have to be certified. I do highly recommend that you send it with tracking. So you can send it Postal Service, UPS, or FedEx, any of those. Just make sure you have tracking on it. Make sure you have our full and complete address. If you are going to be in Columbia and you want to hand deliver it, we are on the 4th floor of our building. Our office hours are 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The outside door will be locked, so please make sure you bring your cell phone. You will be able to call from the intercom on the door. However, we all know how technology goes. It may not, there could be something wrong and it may not work. So please make sure you bring your cell phone just so you don't have to go back to your car and then come back to the building. And at this time, I'm going to kick it over to Tanya, and she's going to talk to you about the school's application packet.
So hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So Katie went all over most of the materials that will go in your school packet. But each time you submit your school packet, you are going to have an eligible applicant form, a school checklist, your ranking policy, a final class rank report, and an individual student paper application packets. And I'm going to go over more of that in detail. So as Katie mentioned, you will include just one eligible applicant form in each of your school packets that you submit. Make sure that you write legibly as well so that we can contact you if we have any questions about your packet. And then for the early award, everyone that you submit should be eligible, meaning that they should have all of the test scores, the class rank, and the GPAs. It's more the late award where we accept pending test scores because we're just waiting on that ACT or SAT. So for our early award, we're looking for those eligible students if they've graduated early, or if you have students who know they don't want you to apply for the Palmetto Fellows, you can select declination. After that, again, you will print your school checklist to help you get through the application process. Again, we only need one per your school packet, not one per student. Okay, so school ranking policy. If you are a public high school, we work with the Department of Education with regards to ranking. So if you are a public high school and you follow the SCDOE ranking policies, then we do not need your ranking policy. However, if you deviate from the SCDOE ranking procedures, or if you're a private school or homeschool, we will need a copy of your school handbook or profile showing your policy on class rank. And we do like to review those every few years. So if you're not sure if we have it, go ahead and send us an email. We're happy to let you know. Okay, so we're going to have the eligible applicant form, your ranking policy, and then we're going to have a ranking report. So this is an example from Power School. So we archive these. So when you send your first early award school packet with your ranking reports, we keep them on file so that if you send further school packets between now and April, you don't have to continue to send the same ranking report. We've got it. And if you have a question about whether we have it or not, send us an email. We're happy to let you know. But this is an example of what it looks like. We need it to have the grade. And we understand that it does not say date calculated, but it does have the date on there. And we need to make sure that this date and the GPAs and the rank all match the information on the transcripts that you are providing. Katie looks through these meticulously, and if she finds an error, we will contact you, which is important on your eligible applicant form that we can read your phone number. Okay, we know that late last year, the Department of Education changed their ranking report kind of without telling anybody, or at least they didn't tell us. And it did not meet the requirements for state scholarships. It prints student information on there, but it did not have your high school name. It didn't have the class grade. It didn't have that date on there. So we couldn't tell what school it was from. It just has a whole bunch of students' names, some GPAs. So if you are using this new ranking report from the Department of Education, it's an Excel document. You can add a few rows and you can input that information yourself. So just make sure that it follows what we're looking for state regulations, which includes the high school name, the grade that it is, and then it has a date calculated that matches your transcripts. This is an example of a rank report from one of our private and homeschools or homeschools. So we do need it typed, date calculated. We cannot accept a written date calculated. Again, this date needs to match the transcripts. And then it needs to list all the students' names, all of their GPAs, and all of their ranks. It cannot be redacted information. And again, we need this to match your transcripts. Okay, so for your school packet, we have the eligible applicant form, your rank policy if we needed it, your rank report if we needed it. We had your checklist, and now we are actually getting into the student paper applications that you're submitting. So for each student, you are going to have a certification authorization form, and that's just the legal document that they have to sign saying that they understand the terms and conditions of the scholarship. For our early award, every single applicant is going to have a final 11th grade transcript. All of them. Every student that you submit for the early award is going to have a final 11th grade transcript. Now, if the student did not rank in 11th grade, but did rank in the 10th grade, and they need rank to qualify, then we also need that 10th grade transcript for that one or two students. We do not need 10th grade transcripts for everyone. We just need it for those that need rank but did not meet it in 11th grade. And then the final piece of work we need is just the test score for the student. Okay, so here's the example of the certification authorization form that the students must sign. No handwritten no typed information. We definitely need handwritten or digital signatures, both in the initial spot and where they sign. I did want to point out on the second page of this document, the most missed initial is up here where Katie is circling. We get more often than not, students just miss initialing there, and then we have to ask you for a new form because we need that initial, because it's really saying I've read everything and I agree. So it's really important that we have that initial. And again, just make sure to use the updated form because it has the most up-to-date language that we need students to agree to. Okay, so then we need that final 11th grade transcript for our early award students. And this is an example, as you guys know, from Power School. So what we go through and we highlight everything. We look at the grade up in the, I'm trying to think, in the left-hand corner to make sure that it says 11th grade, or if it's late award, it says 12th grade. We're looking to make sure that it says final. For the late award, we're making sure that it has the graduation date on there. We're making sure nothing is in the work in progress section. And then down at the bottom, we're checking the date calculated, we're checking the signature, and then we're looking at that GPA and rank to make sure that it matches your ranking report. For a homeschool or private school, we understand that information is different depending, the location is different depending on what system that you use, but we're still looking for that same information. So we're still making sure that it's signed by the appropriate representative from your institution, and then that we're still looking for the date calculated. For 12th grade transcripts, we're still looking for the graduation date, and then that rank and GPA. And then for private schools, on homeschools, we needed to say that that GPA is the SCU GPA, or that you're using the South Carolina Uniform Grading Policy. So some example test scores. If you're still receiving the stickers, we do accept those. We do ask if you could highlight the test scores that you're using. Oftentimes you give us the student's testing sheet and they've taken the test multiple times, and then we're trying to do a Where's Waldo on what test scores you're utilizing for the student. So it would be helpful if you could highlight those. And then that's an example of the ACT test sticker. We also accept information from the Enrich. If you print from Enrich, please make sure that you have the setting that puts the student name at the top, because otherwise we don't know who these scores belong to. They could belong to any student and they're just happen to be in this student's packet. So we need the name to be on the Enrich score report. We only need the page with the test scores. We don't need the entire Enrich file, which sometimes is like 10 pages. We just need the test score page. And then again, highlight the scores that you're using. And then of course, we take the official score reports from your school counselor portal, K-12 portal, and the College Board. And so you can print these, and that just has the student's name and it has their test scores. And the second page, and then again, sign and initial verifying. If they're super scoring their SAT score, we only need the second page. Because it has all the test scores that they've taken. So again, just highlight the scores that you're using, write the total number, because the student name is at the bottom. So we can verify just with the second page, the test score and the student. And then this is just an example of the ACT score reports that you can get from your K-12 portal through ACT. ACT usually provides a super score on there. So if the super score is on the report that you have, we only need that one report. If you don't have access to a super score report, then you will have to submit the multiple reports so that we can verify the test scores. We cannot accept, and I cannot emphasize this enough, we cannot accept student score reports. They cannot come to your office and log in and print it in front of you. We cannot accept it. It has to come from your score report portal. So please do not submit student test scores from their portal. If you're trying to super score the ACT, they have a nice calculator on their website. So you just type in the highest English, math, reading, and science score, and it will give you a super score. It does round up. So, if it's 22.1, they round it up to 23. So just so you know, you can utilize the ACT score report for super scoring.
All right.
Okay. That went quick for me.
Yes. Thank you, Tanya. Okay. So we're going to go over some example application packets. So for the early award, for student one, they're qualifying with rank. So in the student application packet, we would need the student's completed certification authorization form, their final 11th grade transcript to show that they are meeting the GPA requirement. For rank, if they are meeting 11th grade rank, then we already have the 11th grade transcript. We need the 11th grade rank report. But if they are meeting 10th grade rank, we would then need the 10th grade transcript and the 10th grade rank report. So we only need 10th grade for the students that are qualifying with 10th grade. You don't need to print 10th and 11th grade for all of your students. And then, so for that student, we would need the test score. So that would either be the test label that Tanya just showed you, the score sticker, a printed score report, which could be from the K-12 portal from either SAT or ACT, or their Enrich score summary printout. It needs to be date it needs to be signed, initialed, stamped, and or dated. We're just looking for something from you that shows that the high school, what that initial date, stamp, whatever you have, is signifying to us at CHE is that you are certifying that you printed that and you know that that in fact is a correct score. So that's why we're looking for that. For student two, the example packet, the student is qualifying with just the test score with no class rank. So in that student's packet, we need the certification and authorization form completed. We need the student's final 11th grade transcript for GPA. We need nothing for class rank, and then we need their test score. So either the score label, printed score report, or that is initial date stamped or signed. So student notification, as I said earlier, once we receive their paper application, we will have it processed within 1 month. If the student is in the late award, that would be late August. Email notifications are sent to the student email. So please remind your students to be checking their spam or junk folders because we do send them in batches and they do get filtered. We had a horrible time with iCloud emails last year. They just kept censoring us over and over again. Emails are sent from the scholarships at che.sc.gov website. So that is what the student can look for to find that email. That email tells them what their next steps are in order to receive their funding. And so the one and final step that they have with the commission is completing what we call the designation form. And that is the student telling us what institution they are attending so we know where to send their money. The certification authorization form lays this out. They're agreeing to what they need to do. And that form says it is the sole responsibility of the student to submit this form. And that if they don't submit that form to CHE, they should not expect to receive any money. The final deadline to submit designation forms, which what we put in the email is August 31st. We don't hold to that. We are still getting designation forms from the class of 23. We will work with the students as long as we can, which is up through the end of the fiscal year. We don't like to work with them that long, but we will do everything we can to make sure that they get their funding. So if your students wander into your office in the spring, and it usually goes something like, I thought you submitted my Palmetto Fellows application. I haven't heard anything. My financial aid award shows only a life. What is going on? They missed the email. They missed the email. They haven't submitted their designation form to us, and it has not been updated. So I would recommend they start by searching their email for an email from the scholarships at CHE email. You can always contact Tanya and I. We can tell you exactly what date it was sent, date, day, time, to the minute, and to the email address it was sent. So please ask them to check their spam or junk email. So there are two different ways a student can decline the Palmetto Fellows. So the first one is what we call the declination form. So the declination form means the student is declining to apply. And what that means is that that student is signing away their eligibility for Palmetto Fellows forever. They are never submitting an application. They will never be a Palmetto Fellow. They will never receive Palmetto Fellows funding. So this form in the past, we created this form to protect our high school counselors. So every year we would have a handful of students that went out of state, would come back, and when whatever didn't work out of state, when they decided to come back, then they remember, hey, I was a Palmetto Fellow. So then they contact us, and we don't have any record of an application for them being a Palmetto Fellow. So at that point in time, we have to kick them back to the district. And they have to go with the district to figure out, were they a Palmetto Fellow? Because CHE never got an application. And as we've said repeatedly, a student cannot become a Palmetto Fellow after high school graduation. So we created this form to protect our high school counselors. We have updated it this year. We've added a third option to this form, and that option says, I have been notified I meet some of the eligibility requirements. However, I am choosing not to test further in an attempt to obtain a qualifying test score. So if you are meeting with your students for their IGPs through the year, the student has met class rank, student has GPA, student does not have a qualifying test score, you're obviously going to counsel them that if they want to get the Palmetto Fellows, they need to keep testing. At some point in time during the senior year, probably towards the end of it, if you're meeting with them and they are telling you they are not testing, I would encourage you to give them this form with the second option marked and have them complete the form. We have students who will test, not notify their high school counselor, never send their test score to CHE. And then when they get to their college or university in the fall, want to know why the Palmetto Fellows is not on their bill. So then they make a complaint with the institution that their high school counselor never submitted them. So we have added this to help you guys. If you have any questions or it's not working the way you wanted it to work or the way we thought it would work, please let us know. We are amenable to changing it or to doing something different. The other option is for a student who is eligible to apply and does apply, but then through their college search decides to go out of state or maybe possibly go in the military. So they would submit their application with you. We would process it. And then when they go in to do the designation form, they would scroll down and click out of state or gap year, and they would submit that to us. And so that student has closed the door partially, but we're going to keep it open a crack. So if that student ever decides to attend college in South Carolina, we would be able to review them to determine if they have any remaining eligibility that they could receive of Palmetto Fellows funding in the state. Palmetto Fellow Scholarship award amounts for first year, it's up to $6,700. Years 2, 3, and 4, it's up to $7,500. I will tell you the Palmetto Fellows is a last dollar award. And what that means is it can be awarded up to the cost of attendance after all other federal, state, institutional, outside scholarships have been awarded to the student. We come on last, but we go up to cost of attendance at the student's home institution. Some important key points. We do have a gap year. The Palmetto Fellows requires the student enroll immediately following high school graduation, but they do have the allowance for a gap year up to one full academic year. So for the class of 25, if they utilize a gap year, those students would have to be enrolled in college by fall of 25 in order to keep from forfeiting their Palmetto Fellows eligibility. When they are ready to enroll in their institution, they would submit the Palmetto Fellows reapplication form to CHE, which is on our website. Students can attend a 2-year institution, an eligible 2-year institution in South Carolina, and receive the Palmetto Fellows. This is not new, but we still get a ton of phone calls and emails about this, so I have kept it on here. They've been able to attend a 2-year institution since fall of 21. Early graduates, we've covered this quite a bit today. They have to have their application for Palmetto Fellows submitted prior to completing their high school graduation requirements. So if you have a checklist for your high school for early grads, we do ask you, early or mid-year grads, we do ask you to add state scholarships to that Palmetto Fellows. How does a student keep the Palmetto Fellows once they're in college? They have to have a 3.0 cumulative home institutional GPA. That's at the home institution where they are enrolled in that degree program. And they must earn 30 credit hours each academic year. So this is different than the life. We do not include AP, IB, dual enrollment, CLEP, or exempted coursework in that 30 earned credit hour requirement. So if the student is short on GPA or credit hours, because it is a 3.0 cumulative institutional GPA, they can only take coursework at their home institution in order to raise that GPA. However, you'll notice here it says cannot transfer grades from other colleges. They can take credit hours anywhere as long as the home institution will accept them towards the degree program. But they will only transfer in the credit hours completed and not the grade. So credit hours they can take anywhere. GPA, they have to take the courses at the home institution in order to raise their GPA. So for the Palmetto Fellows in the Life, we do have the enhancement. And so a lot of times this is called the STEM enhancement or math and science. So in order for a student to qualify, they have to complete the requirements during their first academic year in college. So they must earn 14 credit hours of math or science by the end of the first year. And because I just told you the opposite for Palmetto Fellows, we will accept AP, IB, dual enrollment, CLEP, and exempted coursework towards the 14 credit hours. We do have a list on our website of approved coursework for the 14 credit hours. They must be enrolled in an eligible major at their home institution. So they need to be in that eligible major before they start year 2. We do have a list on our website of majors that the institutions have submitted to be approved for the enhancement. The enhancement stipend is an additional $2,500. Once the student is approved, they'll be eligible for up to 6 terms. It will start the second academic year that they are enrolled at a 4-year institution. So if your students attend a 2-year institution and they stay there for 2 full years, which would be 4 terms, they would be waiving 2 of their 6 terms of enhancement because they cannot receive enhancement funding at a 2-year institution. So with the enhancement, the life scholarship is up to $5,000 for year 1. For years 2, 3, and 4, it goes up to $7,500 with the enhancement. For Palmetto Fellows year 1, it's up to $6,700. Years 2, 3, and 4, it increases up to $7,500. And if this student gets the enhancement, years 2, 3, and 4 increases up to $10,000 a year. All right, students with disabilities. We highly recommend if you have a student with a documented disability, typically on an IEP or a 504, that those students register with the Office of Disability Services or Student Accessibility Services or Disability Resources. Every campus has an office. It will have a different name. So if you're not sure, have them start with the Student Success Center. They will be able to contact them, connect them with the correct office on campus. We encourage them to register with this office for accommodations prior to the start of their initial enrollment. So we just talked about 30 credit hours earned. If one of the students' accommodations is a reduced course load, that approved reduced course load would replace that 30 credit hour. So a lot of times what we see is the student goes to college, the student doesn't want to register for accommodations because they don't feel they need them, and they may not need them. But the reduced course load accommodation has to be in prior to the term starting. They cannot get that midterm. And so this could mean the difference of a student renewing their scholarship or losing it. If they get into trouble, then they can use the accommodation. If they are doing great and don't need the accommodation, they don't ever have to use it. General, okay. So every year we get a number of phone calls. My sister's neighbor's daughter went to Georgia Tech and took her Palmetto Fellow Scholarship. I can assure you, your sister's neighbor's daughter did not take her scholarship to Georgia Tech. None of our state funding leaves the state of South Carolina, as it is currently prohibited via state statute and regulation. We do participate in what is called the academic common market. And what that is it allows for South Carolina residents who are in very specific degree programs to look at out-of-state institutions who participate in this. And what it does is it waives the out-of-state tuition charge. It helps. It's not their scholarship. It's different. So if you have a student who's looking for a very specific major, we don't have any in South Carolina. So right now we still don't have a veterinary science program. Clemson is building their program, but until it is up and running, our students majoring in veterinary sciences are leaving the state, and they are doing so with the academic common market. So that is on our website. This QR code takes you to that on our website, and they can review that database for institutions who are participating. And so that takes us to transcripts. So I'm gonna kick it back over to Tanya and let her talk to you about transcripts.
Yay, transcripts. Okay. So again, if you are a public school, your transcripts, we work with the Department of Education to ensure that they have everything for state scholarships. However, if you were homeschool or private school, we still want to go over everything. So the transcripts must state SCU, GP, GPA. We cannot accept weighted or unweighted or total GPA. We need somewhere on the transcript to say the GPA on this transcript is uniform South Carolina uniform grading policy is the SCU GP. So all final transcripts must be date calculated between 3 days prior to the date of high school graduation and no later than June 15th. During the early award, we saw a good bit of transcripts date calculated way before 3 days prior to high school graduation. And then we have to come back to you and get new transcripts. And by then, those transcripts don't match the archived ranking report, and it's a huge mess. So please date calculate your transcripts between 3 days prior to high school graduation, but no later than June 15th. And then, of course, no final grades or rankings can include grades earned after the official graduation date. Those summer grades cannot be included. Those students are unfortunately not eligible for state scholarships because they had an extra term to boost their GPA and finish their courses. Okay, so what we are looking for on transcripts, we're going through and literally highlighting these things on your transcripts for state scholarships. We are looking for a valid signature. From our public schools, that's the principal. From our private schools, it's the designated school representative. You just let us know who that is. We keep that on file. And so we are looking for a valid signature. It must be a signed transcript. We're looking for that SCU, GP, GPA. We're looking for that date calculated, again, to be no later than June 15th, but no earlier than 3 days prior to high school graduation. For our late awards and our 12th grade transcripts, it does need to say it's the final transcript and it needs to have that graduation date reflected on there. And then if your school ranks as an official policy, then the rank must be on your transcript. So our, yep. Now we get a few, I was just gonna say our independent schools, we just want to make sure that you're printing it on your transcripts when you're sending it to us, and that it matches your ranking report. Okay, so some of you will get students coming from out-of-state schools, and those students can earn state scholarships. It's just a little bit more of a process, which Katie and I are happy to help walk you through. But in general, those students will come to your school, and if, let's say, for example, for this early award, they were at another school, out-of-state school in 10th grade, and they're now with you in 11th grade, but they earned rank in 10th grade, but they're not earning rank with you in 11th grade. So we need to figure out if they're eligible for state scholarships. So the biggest thing with rank is, one, we need to review that ranking policy from that out-of-state school to even verify that they rank. Because a lot of schools can say, well, I can provide you a rank because their system can provide that, but that doesn't mean that they officially rank as a policy. So we have to see their policy on rank before we can verify if they can even use rank. And then the biggest thing with these students is you or the other out-of-state high school has to re-rank the students using the SCU GPA. So they have to do a conversion spreadsheet to say, here's the new GPA for the student. But then they also have to re-rank the entire class. So if this student were a South Carolina student in a South Carolina high school, they would have to get re-ranked. And most out-of-state schools are not willing to do that. So most likely our out-of-state students aren't able to use rank because the schools just don't have the resources to convert over the entire class for ranking purposes. But a student can use the alternative criteria to earn the state scholarship. Okay, so rank. So for the purposes of Life and Palmetto Fellows, two students cannot occupy the same rank. Life Scholarship is the top 30% of the graduating class, and it does not round up. Palmetto Fellows, as you know, as we've gone over, it's the top 6% in either 10th, 11th, or 12th. It does round up to the next whole number. So if you have 5.2 students, you can submit 6. However, if you have, we know that Power School prints 1, 2, 3, 3, 5, and they're not printing number 4, but we need you to break that rank. We cannot do it at CHE. So you need to provide us a letter just saying so-and-so is number 3 and so-and-so is number 4. And you do that based off of either your school policy, your district policy, or your board's policy, you know, whether that's truncating it out to the 10th decibel and whatnot. we don't particularly care how you're breaking the tie. We just need a letter telling us what the tiebreaker is. Okay, so ranking policies. What we're looking for, if your school ranks, as an official policy. So this is for everybody because this is in state law. So whether you're in state, out of state, private, public, virtual, charter, homeschool, everybody has to have the same requirements for ranking policy. So that's just saying that the GPA is the SEU GPA, which is a cumulative GPA of all grades earned 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. You have to rank everybody at the end of every year. And you're printing that rank on the student's transcript. You're including everybody who went to that school, even if they're not earning state scholarships, they need to be a part of your class rank. And then it has to be on the transcript and in the ranking report. And it has to be submitted to CHE. Your rank policy should be available on your school profile, in your student handbook, and on your website. We and the institutions are occasionally looking at your website to see if your ranking policy is there, especially if I have questions that I'm looking to see if it's in your handbook. And then you should let your students and parents know if you officially rank as a policy, and then it just has to be made available to us and the colleges. Okay, so rank reports. Yeah, the rank report that you're printing, Power School does it for our public schools, but for our private schools, we're looking at all the students are there, all their GPAs are there, all their class ranks are there, and there's a printed date calculator that's no later than June 15th, and it matches your transcripts. Okay, so you all should have received a memo, and if you didn't, we're happy to send it to you, but it's also on our website on the school counselor page. So on June 15th, we stated, starting with the class of 2024, so that is this class that is graduating in May or June, you're going to submit your final 12th grade ranking reports to CHE. And please do that no later than June 30th. What we do is we upload these to a statewide portal that the colleges have access to so they can verify that the final transcripts that they have from you match the final ranking that we have at the state level so that they can verify life scholarship eligibility. So please email those to scholarships@che.sc.gov. And if you have questions, please let Katie or I know. Just a few more things before we are done. So just general eligibility requirements for all of our state scholarship and grant programs. The first is students need to be a U.S. citizen and legal permanent resident. And this needs to be at the time of high school graduation and at the time of college enrollment. Now, it is not your job to determine residency. It is the institutions. So for Palmetto Fellows, you are submitting all students who are academically eligible, whether they are U.S. citizens or not, because it's not your job or our job to determine residency. It's the institutions. Again, so they need to be a South Carolina resident. They can't have any felony convictions, no second or subsequent drug or alcohol misdemeanors. They can't be in default of any loans, and they do need to be in a degree-seeking program at an eligible South Carolina institution. Your graduation bulletins, every year it happens to a handful of students where the graduation bulletin says so-and-so is a life student, and then for whatever reason, they go to the college and they are not. And maybe that's residency, maybe that's their final grades came in and they didn't do so well at the end of the year. For whatever reason, they're not life eligible, but they're like, well, I have a program telling me that I am. So we just ask, if you're going to say something about students being scholarship recipients, that you put a small disclaimer in there, just saying that this is preliminary based off the information provided by the high school at the time of printing and is subject to final confirmation by the institutions. Okay, we have beat this to death. We just want to make sure that you understand graduating early and early graduate. So early graduate, these are our seniors graduating mid-year. The most important thing for life, and as Katie said, if you have an early graduate checklist, I would add this on there, but life students cannot use rank for scholarship eligibility. Every December and January, we get phone calls from parents and students saying, I didn't know that they couldn't use rank and they don't meet the test score, and they're very upset that they're not life eligible. So please let your families know if they plan on graduating early for the life scholarship, they cannot use rank because they are being removed from their graduating class. And then Katie's already gone over how Palmetto Fellows need to be submitted prior to high school graduation. So then we go on to graduating early. So these are students who usually skip an academic year. In most cases, we see that they're going from 10th grade into the new 12th grade class. So for Hope in Life, they're not affected because they're getting added into the new graduating class so they can use rank if they need to. But for Palmetto Fellows, it really depends on what year they are skipping, depends on what application period you're going to submit them. So as we said, for the early award, we have to have an 11th grade transcript. So if they went from 10th to 12th, they can't be a part of the early award because we don't have an 11th grade transcript. So they would need to be a part of that late award period. And then a late award, they can use their 10th grade rank and their 12th grade GPA, or they can use that 12th grade rank in their new class. Okay, so you may or may not have heard, we do the college access programs here at CHE, and we have always opened College Goal starting in October and running through about March or April. But this year, the U.S. Department of Education and a whole bunch of other folks have come up with a new FAFSA simplification, and they don't know when the new FAFSA is going to be released. They have said we're making changes and it's going to come out maybe in December. They've been throwing December out, but then occasionally we hear or later. So we're still holding College Goal events where students can make their FSA ID and create their student aid account. But we keep, as we find more, as we hear about more changes, we are putting them on our website and we're sharing that information as we have it. So just kind of keep an ear out that the FAFSA is delayed and is coming out hopefully at the end of the year.